Welcome to the Sound Healing Global Summit, a free online event featuring leading-edge sound healing practitioners, revealing the curative and evolutionary powers of sound healing therapies to create vibrant health for you and your clients. Share this event with your friends and family, and come join us on Facebook at The Shift Network. And now your host, Alec W. Sims.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for a new session here on the Sound Healing Summit. We always appreciate having you with us. Our special guest coming up this time around is Joshua Leeds. Joshua Leeds is a sound researcher, music producer, and educator. He specializes in psychoacoustic, which is the study of the effects of music and sound on the human nervous system, and also bioacoustic, with a recent focus on how human sound affects animals. He's the author of The Power of Sound, Through a Dog's Ear, and Sonic Alchemy, as well as numerous soundtracks that are used in a wide variety of therapeutic settings worldwide. His latest book, Music and Sound Health on a Hot Planet, will be published in 2021. Joshua, welcome.
Thank you, Alec. I'm delighted to be here with you.
Outstanding. Good to see you again. So many topics here and always so little time, but I want to start with just a slight tangent, because we're here to talk mainly about the future of sound work. But I just want to put a nod and honor the traditions of the past, because in a similar fashion to what we're doing here on this summit, bringing all these different personalities and teachers on to talk about sound work, you did a similar project like over 20 years ago that went into your book, Sonic Alchemy. So I just want to acknowledge that and give that book the highest recommendation. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And actually, to continue that side note, just here on this summit, we're bringing all the currently active voices in sound. I also want to acknowledge the spirit of the late Don Campbell, who is no longer with us, but his book, Music Physician for Times to Come, is another essential classic for people who want to delve into the real root of sound healing. So Music Physician and Sonic Alchemy, just go back to the wellspring of the source, the original pioneers of sound. You'll be happy you did. So back to the now. I mean, it's stating the obvious that we live in very challenging times right now, but I often think of that sort of cliche, but I think meaningful thing about the Chinese character for crisis, how it actually consists of two characters for crisis and opportunity. So we have to hold to that affirmation of the positive opportunity and the positive evolutions that may come from this. And that's what we're here to talk about today. But since I just started with that thread about the past, there are lessons to be learned from those who came before us. So from your researches, how have sound and music and sound work been used to help navigate times of crisis in the past?
Well, that's a great way for us to start. I am, of course, like all of us, extremely taken by, as you mentioned, crisis and opportunity. And while exercising full caution and consideration around the crisis, what I'm really interested in is looking at the opportunities that brings to us on a general level for everybody, and on a specific level for those of us who are called to work with therapeutic music and sound. And when I say therapeutic, then what I mean is using music and sound for more than just entertainment. And entertainment is wonderful, and it has a very special place and necessity in our world. That's why we have it. But I believe that the field of sound work distinguishes and differentiates itself from regular entertainment with music, because it is really invested in how it is that music and sound affects the other dimensions besides the laughter reflex or the feeling reflex. I might be getting myself into trouble here, because the truth is that they all intertwine. And so what I want to talk about is, in the research for my book, Sound Work on a Hot Rock, because that's what I'm thinking that all of this COVID virus are all indications of a planet out of balance. And I'm concerned that beyond the viruses, we have global warming, and we have elections, and we have social issues, and we have a stack of things that are leading us in a direction where there is an opportunity for a renaissance. And that's what I want to speak about. And so, in my research on my book, what I found is that the way that music and sound has been used historically in times of crisis pretty much involves the use of music with the emotions. We know that it regulates mood. We know that it helps us to regain a sense of control when we feel like things are out of control. It helps us to express our emotions and our fears and to process grief. It provides hope. It creates an expression of personal and collective identity. Personal identity is a very important piece of who we are. And when we feel like we have lost control, or we are in a place of uncertainty, and our pattern-oriented mind and brain, which is always looking for certainty, can't find it, then this is one of the ways that music in the past and currently applies, is that it helps us to increase social cohesion. That means to help maintain a sense of community, to feeling together, connected. We're all in the same boat. We're all out here on the water, and we're all in the same boat. Now, neurologically, music heightens positive emotion in the reward centers of the brain by releasing dopamine. And music also impacts brain circuits involved in empathy and in trust and in cooperation. All of these things that helps us to relate to one another. Humans, we're herd animals. We're not meant to be in a state of isolation. And yet it's a very interesting thing that we find ourselves at this time, where the antidote to this virus causes us to be, in many cases, everybody's different in their circumstances, but it causes us to be in an epidemic of isolation. The use of music has in the past and will again and does now help in dealing with this isolation. And it's an area that I look forward to going into in a little bit more in depth later on.
And topically, that is such an important theme. So I've tried to get at least tidbits of information in every session of how sound can be used as an empowering force to help, combat as an antidote to that feeling of everyone feeling so helpless. What do I do? But there is a lot we can do, and a lot you can do for yourself with sound, and a lot that I believe that artists and sound healing creators can do. Do you have a view on that, like the role of the artists and the sound healing and creators in this time?
Yes, I absolutely do. When we first went into lockdown, I'm located here in Southern Oregon, and we're very fortunate that we've got a very low rate of infection, but nonetheless, everybody is still operating under the vantage point of keeping that serious level of caution so we can keep our numbers down. I came to realize that I was absolutely starving for contact, that I had not seen a real live human being other than out on my walks in my daily life, and that I was really, really needing to go back to what it is I've been talking about for my entire professional career in Soundwork, the last 35 years or so. And that was about sound as a nutrient for the nervous system. That all of my sound was coming through compression, through Zoom audio, through Spotify, through all of these ways that we're really glad to have, but I wasn't getting any organic sound. And so what I realized is that I needed to go back to my own writings, where I've talked so much about the use of nutrient sound and how do we how do we bring that forward? I'm going to come back around to that, but I would like to just basically summarize that here we are. Everybody knows the situations that we're in. And I think that over the last 4.5 months that we have basically now moved into a time, what I call a time of inurement. That means that we have learned how to acclimate to one crisis, and we are now saying, okay, what do we need to do now with the economy? Or what do we need to do with global warming against the backdrop of dealing with a COVID-19 virus that is being extremely stubborn and very, very difficult and very traumatic in many places around the world. But we're adaptable beings. And that's one of the amazing things about humans is that we do know how to adapt. And throughout history, people have adapted to plagues every 100 years or world wars or depressions or whatever. And some people don't make it through okay, and some people don't make it through at all. And most people do. And we have learned how to create the tools that we need in order to be able to respond appropriately, to be able to set an example, to be able to inspire other people, to bring hope. All right. So at first, I viewed COVID through a very dark lens. When I looked at it in relationship to all the other things on my list, the social activism that is being born of a massive discontent, an election, a divisive country, economic travails, rise of trillion-dollar corporations, the birth of artificial intelligence, massive income inequality, climate change. I mean, there are 8 things on that list that any 3 of them together are game changers. Any one of them are potentially game changers. And we've got 8 of them going on at the same time. And so I was very, very concerned, but I have to say, not only was I concerned, it was very depressing to me because I love our planet and I love our people on our, let alone our animals and everything. And I have arrived at a place of starting to see the silver linings of this, just like you were talking about, Alec, about crisis and opportunity, about where are the silver linings of this. And I actually believe that behind the 8 topics that I just mentioned, we are heading into an evolution, a revolution. And after that and through that is a renaissance. And it gives us the opportunity as musicians, as artists, as visionaries, to not only reflect what is taking place in our culture, but it gives us an opportunity to be able to help to lead our culture through times of difficulty. Now, how do we do that? So one of the things that I'm thinking about a lot is about this realm of isolation. Isolation is something that we're needing to find ourselves, place ourselves in isolated environments, isolated situations to stop the flow of this virus, the contagiousness of this very dangerous illness. So what happens when we have isolation? Roughly 50% of this country is made up of people who are 60 years and older. That makes up about 13%, más o menos, okay? And the remainder of that 50% is of young people under the ages of 25. The young people and the older people make up half of our country, and then the other half are in between, the people 26 to 59. And they generally are in family environments or situations where they're around other people. The wiring is very, very different for people who are over 60 and people who are under 25. People who are under 25 need to have social interaction. They need it because their brains are still developing. Their identity is still developing. They get their identity through the interaction that they have with other people. People who are over 60, they know very well who they are, but they need the interaction because they need the stimulation. because use it or lose it. And if they are not active in the use of their brains and their minds and the rest of their bodies, then they're going to start to diminish. And there's been enough studies to understand the importance of being able to keep rolling, to be able to have healthy 70s, 80s, and 90s. So really what occurs to me when I think about all of this is that we have an opportunity, along with technologists, corporations, governments, ecologists, and nonprofit organizations, to reflect what is called for and needed and help create structures to assist our fellow beings, humans and animals. And I think that the greatest acknowledgement is, what are the tools that address isolation? And I believe that right now, and I'm going to say that even after they have a vaccination, who knows how long it's going to take for the whole world to get vaccinated? Who knows how long it's going to take for effective vaccinations to be in place? We don't know what the story is, but what we know is that however this virus came to be, this coronavirus, it's a tricky devil. And it may take a long time for us to get a handle on it, and it may be in our world for a long time. So how do we live with it? Some people are going to just say, I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'm going to just rush right on out there. Other people are going to stay isolated even after the major spread has taken place. Some people are going to say, herd immunity, I've got an underlying condition, I can't go there. Remember, we're talking about 13% of the United States population. Now, of course, this was based on a 2000 census, and it may have changed a little bit since then, but still in rough numbers, we're talking about a lot of people that are going to change their lives, and they're going to live in a state of isolation. Now, I don't have all the answers, but these are some of the ideas that are coming to me. While we have isolation, we also have technology, and it's definitely not a substitute for a warm hand. We know that. But in challenging times, you take what you can use. And we know that music redirects personal attention and regulates mood and helps express emotions and fears and all the things that we talked about. And it helps maintain a sense of community, of feeling connected. So I believe that social cohesion is an antidote to isolation and fear. We just don't have a pandemic of COVID-19. We have a pandemic of isolation. And so the unanswered question is, how does music and sound aid and inspire people suffering from social isolation?
Yes, because there's a lot to think about there, and that probably gets beyond the scope of the themes we want to stick to here on the Sound Summit. But I am in that camp that I think the secondary pandemics of fear mongering and the downside of isolation are, dare I say, just as bad, if not worse, than the actual viral threat. But you raise an important one very useful solution in the midst of that. You're talking about that bit about sound as a nutrient for the nervous system. And I'm one of these people now that I'm here and inside a lot. I primarily listen to my music on Spotify, or it's on like cable TV. And as you noted, hearing only these sounds from these compressed, artificial, limited sound sources is less than ideal. So there was a solution right there, just getting out into natural, acoustic, pure sound, however you can. So that was a great tip as well.
Well, I've started to put together a list, and I don't have all of the answers. And the truth is that I'm wrapping my tiny mind around all of this. And I really am looking forward to the opportunity of musicians and sound workers gathering, even if clearly remotely via Zoom on technology, to be able to discuss how is it that we can deal with this epidemic of isolation, understanding that music and sound is a tremendous antidote to it. So this is what I've come up with so far, Alec. That technology must be developed that allows simultaneous real-time online singing and playing of music instruments together. We know that this is a technological problem called lag or latency. And it just means that the lines that carry the internet around the world, some of them are direct and are only 3 miles, and others go underneath the oceans and circle all the way back around the world. And we have no way of knowing which one of our signals is only going 3 miles and which one is going 10,000 miles. And so far, there hasn't been the big need for simultaneous real-time recording. But I'm sure every choral director in the world would like to be able to get on Zoom where everybody can still be socially distanced appropriately to be able to help get rid of this disease and can be singing in real time, not virtual choirs. That's a wonderful workaround, and we love that. It makes us feel good. It's fabulous. But what I want to do is I want to find a way that there is enough attention put on this, that enough people contact Zoom, contact the other video platforms to say, please put a couple of your engineers on this. We need to have real, live, simultaneous sound going on, music and sound, so people can sing together. This would be something that would really, really make a difference. But I'm saying don't wait for technology to catch up when we're talking to our different musician friends and sound working friends. Take out a Zoom account and work within its own parameters. It's only $15 a month, and people can join from around the world. So here are some of the things that you can do on Zoom. You can teach an instrument, not as a professional, but as what helps people to make sound. Currently, the Shift Network has got a very cool thing going on. Christine Stevens is right on the cutting edge of all of this. She's teaching people to play a simple flute at home. That means nutrient sound. People are making sound. People are distracted from the issues that are at hand. They are using sound as an antidote for isolation. It will make them feel better. Eileen McKissick is using tuning forks and teaching people how to use these instruments that they can get their hands on through Amazon or any number of ways. There are many people that are working with the tuning forks. They're an excellent way of being able to self-administer nutrient sound. Jonathan Goldman, my dear colleague, has laid out the basic understanding of Soundwork, and that is available as well. So the Shift Network is providing lots of tools already. They're on the edge of this thing way before it really needed to happen in terms of an isolation antidote. In addition to that, I think that this is the time for people to network. They're one of my most favorite people that is pushing this scene of the Soundwork community forward is Renee Fleming, who is one of America's sweetest and finest opera singers. And single-handedly, Renee Fleming decided that she wanted to help move sound health forward. And she met Francis Collins, the head of the NIH, and together they designed a program that put out $20 million in 2019 for 15 different research studies into the effect of music and sound on the human and animal nervous system. Now, Renee Fleming did this single-handedly using the agency of her extraordinary talent, her celebrity, and she does every Tuesday on Facebook Live she does a program called Music in the Mind. And I sat and I watched last week's show that was with Mickey Hart and with Zakir Hussain, the extraordinary Indian percussionist. And I learned so much about percussion. And it inspired me to sit down and to grab a drum or grab a pot out of my kitchen and to, again, make sound. And from my vantage point, this is all about teaching people, inspiring people, finding people to help out in making sound. That's what we want to do. And so that requires a different skill set as a sound worker. And Alec, this is one of the things that I'm coming forward when I talk about how I believe that there is an enormous evolution going on right now. Here in America, it may be a revolution. Maybe it will be a peaceful revolution. Maybe it'll be like Estonia, where it was a singing revolution, like what happened in 1989 in Estonia. Maybe sound workers can come together in such a degree and can fill the streets wearing their masks or post masks or whatever, and millions of people singing it worked in a little country. It would allow them to split apart from the Soviet Union, which had they didn't have any concern at all about sending in troops and in armies and guys with guns and all of that. Look what happened in Romania. And so for me, anytime that there is an evolution, there's an extraordinary opportunity for artists. And this is an extraordinary opportunity for sound workers now to look at what is called for and needed, and then to adapt their skill set. Because pre-COVID was a whole other way of being. And our world has changed. Our world has changed in 6 months. I mean, the world changed in one day after Pearl Harbor was bombed. Remember can you imagine December 6th? And then there was December 7th and December 6th, everything was just fine. And December 7th, all of a sudden the world changed. And December 8th, we were living in a different world. Well, we haven't had a Pearl Harbor, but we've had a Pearl Harbor of sorts. The world is different. And so what is called for now? This is the reason why my new book is called Soundwork on a Hot Rock, because right behind this is a heating planet. And people are going to need things. And Soundwork is about bringing music and sound in a way that helps our brothers and sisters, no matter where they are. So what an extraordinary opportunity. You can see how excited I am. Thanks, Alex. Alec.
Well, I hope to all of that, because I've also seen you use the phrase raising the bar of sound work, which I hear that on that theme, that positive, inspirational call to action. Sound healers and creators step up and play their part and contribute to, the real world benefits on the front line of sound. And so on that theme, I know that you're also involved in tracking the latest researches from the National Institute of Health, training the cutting edge info that's coming out about verifying the validity of sound work. Do you have a few bits from that research you'd like to share?
Yeah, I sure do, Alec. And I also want to just double back for a second and take a great phrase that you just used, and that is about being on the front line of sound. I think that by its very nature, musicians who are artists, people who are working with sound and vibration are artists. All artists are on the front line. We reflect our cultures and we feed our cultures. And I am so of the belief that now is the time for us to be able to say, in this evolutionary time, what can we do that, even though this is what I used to do, how can I take what I used to do and wrap it into what's called for and needed? We all need to ask that question. What is called for and needed? And even if it means, okay, I'm putting those things aside, I'm starting all over, what do I need to learn? So the reason why I got so excited about the National Institutes of Health, Francis Collins and Renee Fleming, and what they launched is because they picked out 15 wonderful areas where there was either research going on already that this could then take it to its next level, or where they could say, let's start here. And one of the things that I've learned in researching this research is that usually if a university receives a $300 or a $500 or $1 million grant, $300,000 or $500,000 or $1 million grant, then chances are when they finish that particular narrow study, then there's another $300 or $500,000 or $1 million waiting for the next step. And so the fact that they have opened up the doors and put $20 million into this means that when these research studies mature over the course of the next year or two or three, that there will be more money to take these things deeper. Now, here are a few of them that I have that have just inspired me. I think this is such a glorious time to be an artist and to be able to assess what is needed and figure out new ways to achieve. And so look what these guys are doing. One of the studies that they're doing is called song making in a group. All right, so now we've heard about that. It's really about music hallucinations and predictive coding. It's done at Yale University. And predictive coding, now this starts to get into some serious science. What does that mean? It means this research will determine if listening to, performing, and creating music helps people with psychosis. Now that's deep. We like that because that means the use of music instead of heavy depressants, heavy drugs that rob people of their vitality because they're wired a little bit differently. Sing for your saunter using self-generated rhythmic cues to enhance gait in Parkinson's. Music training, bilingualism, and executive functioning is being done at the University of Southern California as we speak. And this studies the effects of music training on the development of executive function skills, a core set of cognitive functions that allows the coordination of thoughts, decision-making, and planning. And this is being done in a population of school-aged children from under-resourced communities of Los Angeles. So what does that mean? That means that these people are looking into this and spending lots of money to be able to say, this is how we can deal with people without pharmaceutical drugs. And this is how we can help people to create a different level of executive function. In other words, it brings music back into the schools. Tufts University in Maryland is doing a study called Developing an Animal Model to Study Auditory Motor Interactions During Rhythm Perception. And remember the cockatoo snowball that came around that everybody loved to see because he danced perfect rhythm to, another one, Bites the Dust, came around a few years ago. Well, they've been studying it, and they think that this research will lay the groundwork for an animal model to study beat perception, which would allow mechanistic investigation of the neural code underlying temporal prediction and informing rhythm-based musical interventions. Wow, what does that mean? When I read this stuff, I have to read it like 5 times to even begin to understand. I always have my dictionary out with me. But what it means is to enhance function in normal and diseased states. So if they're spending $500,000 on this study, and we'll go ahead beyond this by studying how animals perceive rhythm with the goal of saying, how do musical interventions enhance function in disease states? Boom! We have now moved from where sound work was in the 20th century and into the 21st century, where the government is recognizing and allocating funding to a non-pharmaceutical way of dealing with cognitive function, of disease, of well-being. I mean, this list just goes on and on. Decreasing delirium through music in critically ill older adults. I had personal experience about this. My mother was taken into the ICU because she fell. And quite often people that are brought in who are older, way older, into the ICU develop delirium with long-term post-discharge complications, such as the development of cognitive impairment and dementia. My mother died of dementia. It was not pretty. It was not easy. And she fell into dementia because she went into the hospital because of a hip injury. The hip injury didn't cause the dementia, but the shock. So this study is about how to use a musical intervention when people are brought in to the hospital, when they are available to having post-hospital release dementia. Investigating the neural mechanisms underlying language recovery through rhythm therapy, musical rhythm sensitivity to scaffold social engagement in autism. The list goes on and on and on. Here's the bottom line of all of this. We have an opportunity. The time is now. The social conditions are what they are. We are in a time where change is happening every day and is going to be needing to happen every day. The need is there. The support is there. Where are the artists? Where are the sound-working artists who are saying, let's go. This is our time. 21st century sound work. Let's go. Let's figure out how to get the technology companies to adapt artificial intelligence so we can use it in sound work. Let's figure out how to get rid of latency so that choirs can be coming from somebody's living room. The list goes on and on and on. I just got an email today that there was a COVID test that was based upon sound. Now, whether or not this is in its early development stage or whether or not it's actually going to happen, they are studying sonic biomarkers in Israel. The opportunities are vast. Come on. It's time to create a new Soundwork for the 21st century. And all of the elements are there. And I invite you to join me because I am out there. I'm an activist. We have an opportunity to change our country, change our world, to help people. What else do we need? And there's money to support it. Now we just need the will, the artistic will, and the imagination. Let's go. Come on.
There we go. Thank you for that encouragement, inspiration. That's perhaps one of the most important themes of our times right now, these times now. So thank you. So on that theme, for joining you, if people do want to contact, communicate with you and find out more about your work, where's the best place to go?
They can go to my website, joshualeeds.com. And there's a conversation that I would like to engage in. And they can also go and find me on Facebook. And it's Joshua Leeds Soundwork. If you're interested, if you would like to be a part of networking groups that come together, because let's be smart about this. Let's be fast. Let's not be thinking that we have to figure it all out ourselves. I can't figure it out. My little brain has just got only a certain amount of space, and it's through the collaborations that we create new things. I don't know what I'm getting into by saying this, and by saying this publicly, I probably should know better, but it has to start somewhere. If you would like to be a part of networking that discusses how do we bring sound work into the 21st century, how do we bring sound work onto these evolutionary, revolutionary times, what can we do? Then go to my Facebook page, Joshua Leeds Soundwork or Joshua Leeds. Go to my website, put in the box, I want to be part of the networking groups. I don't know what will happen. We'll see what happens. Don't wait for me. Start your own. Let's go. Let's go, Alec.
All right, let's go. We're right after this. We'll be in touch. But well, thank you for that, because that's the positive aspect of social media platforms, to really bring people together in these forums of communication. So thanks for the call to yours. There are others out there, and start your own. Because that was my theme. One of my themes for this whole summit is self-empowerment through sound. So we can all learn from sound and relatively quickly make it our own, express in our own way. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
So we only have a few minutes left, but I just have to bring it up, especially in these times where people are isolated from each other. We have to acknowledge like the healing power and love that people get from their pets and animal companions. And that's one aspect of your work that go back to the themes of your book, Through a Dog's Ear. Would you like to say a little bit about that, how sound can be used to help pets and help your relationship with your pets as well?
Well, what I can say is that one of the silver linings of this pandemic here in America, the shelters are I'm not going to say that they're almost empty, but I would say that the adoption rates have been extraordinary. The number of people that are fostering dogs is off the charts. The number of people that have gotten puppies is amazing. I have friends who say to me all the time, you really need a dog. And I love dogs, and I don't have a dog. And the reason why I don't have a dog is because before this pandemic, I was traveling a lot all around the world, and I have been for decades. And so it wasn't appropriate for me to be having a dog and to be leaving a dog boarded or by itself. But the number of people that have gotten puppies is just off the charts. And why? Because everybody needs somebody to love. The Beatles had it down. Everybody wants something to hold. I have a company that puts out music to calm pets because pets, even before the pandemic, go nuts in our human world. They can't make sense of the human noise and the soundscape of the human culture. And so it has been a very successful venture and held my attention a lot longer than I ever thought. And one of the things that I've learned is that the mammalian ear of the dogs and of the cats is very similar to the human ear. And that means that they are looking for certain resonances, tones, and certain patterns and certain rhythms to help them to be able to calm down. And so through I Calm Pet, which is the name of that project, we have supplied thousands and thousands of shelters with music that is used that calm the animals. And of course, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of homes around the world where they are using music to be able to calm the animals. But the interesting thing is that I'm not proud. I'll go through the doggy door. What I'm really doing is helping to calm the human household. Because if the humans are uptight, the animals are going to be uptight. So the interesting survey that we're just doing right now is what has been the impact of you being home all the time on your animals? Are you driving your animals crazy? Are they driving you crazy? It gives an extraordinary opportunity to be able to say, okay, here we are all together. What do we all need? What is the impact of my sensory environment on these four-leggeds? What is the effect of their sensory environment on me? How do we all, I'm always looking at the meta themes. How do we all share? How do we all share this planet together? How do we all share an apartment or a house together? Again, these are extraordinary times, and from the most micro level to the biggest macro level, this is a time for new awareness. It's a time for great new consciousness. It's a time for two-leggeds and four-leggeds and all kinds of beings to be able to say, how do we share this planet? Because right after this COVID thing, we've got this global warming. And this global warming is happening already, but it's not as dramatic because it's not happening all at the same time in the exact same way. It might be fires in Australia and hurricanes in the Caribbean, and somehow we kind of feel like it's still kind of okay. It's them over there and them over there. But with this COVID thing, it's everybody. And maybe out of all of this, we'll come about to a place where we're saying we're all in this together. Now, how do we take care of each other?
Yes, and thank you for sharing that, because just back to the pets theme, because pets are like cherished family members, and as you know, they can also receive benefits from music and sound that helps the relationship of human to animal and human to human, and keeps us all moving forward here. Thank you for sharing all those thoughts. May we all rise up and make music and sound your own and resonate outwards, and so you can be an instrument that plays your part here in the whole global symphony. Thank you for sharing inspirations and thoughts on that topic here today, Josh.
Thank you so much, Alec. I really appreciate it.
Okay, and speaking of appreciation, thank you all for joining us and listening here on the Shift Network Sound Healing Summit. It's an honor and pleasure having you with us. And keep riding the sound currents, keep sounding, and may joyous sounds resonate with you. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you for joining us for the Sound Healing Global Summit, brought to you by the Shift Network. To learn more, visit soundhealingglobalsummit.com. To join our global community of people awakening to their divine humanity and taking inspired action, visit theshiftnetwork.com. Thank you again for gathering with us and for sharing this healing path with your friends and family.